Um, Welcome to this deep dive.
Yes, welcome.
If you are listening to this right now, you are likely on a journey. You are trying to master the English language.
Right, and that is a really big goal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're putting in a lot of effort to understand complex ideas and doing that in a language that might not be your first language.
It takes a tremendous amount of focus.
It really does. So today, we have a mission for our deep dive that matches that exact level of effort you are putting in.
We do.
We are going to explore the very intense and sometimes totally overwhelming focus of university life.
Yeah, the academic side of student life.
Right. And we are doing this by looking at a very specific piece of source material.
It's a great source, too.
It is. We have a transcript from a very popular show called Minds in Motion.
Specifically, we are looking at part 2 of their series, which is titled The Student Life.
Yeah. And in this transcript, there are two hosts. Their names are Mark and Clara.
And Mark and Clara are breaking down a conversation between two very different university students.
Right, Alex and Mia. So our goal today, for you listening, is to look at their story. We are not just going to practice English comprehension, though that is important.
Right.
We want to truly understand the culture, the pressure, and the survival strategies of higher education.
The transcript of Mark and Clara's conversation gives us a perfect window into that specific world.
It really does.
We are going to look very closely at the emotional and physical states of these two students, Alex and Mia.
We will look at the physical spaces they choose to do their work in.
Yeah, and the way they manage their time. Plus, we will look at the specific academic vocabulary they use to describe their days.
We're also going to analyze a concept called deep work.
We will talk about the anxiety of writing, and we will look at that huge adrenaline rush of a final deadline.
And we are going to take our time with all of this. We know you're learning, so we will speak clearly. We will unpack the exact meaning behind the words.
But before we get into the deep details of Alex and Mia, I want you to think about a specific feeling.
Ooh, this is a good question.
Have you ever sat through a really exhausting meeting at your job? Or maybe a very long class?
You were taking furious notes the entire time. You're trying to write down every single thing the speaker says.
Exactly. But then, the next day, you look at your notebook and you realize you have written in a secret code.
Yes. The letters are just squiggles on the page.
Right. The words make absolutely no sense at all.
Your brain was just so tired that it completely disconnected from your hand. You physically held the pen, but your mind was entirely somewhere else.
Today, we're going to look at why that specific thing happens. We will look at what it tells us about our energy.
And most importantly, how the choices we make the night before completely dictate our success the next morning.
We see this exact situation play out in the source material with our first student.
Right, Alex.
The transcript describes him as a zombie.
A zombie. To understand why he is acting like a zombie, we have to look at the decisions he made the night before this conversation.
The script tells us that Alex had a very late night.
He stayed up until 3 o'clock in the morning studying.
Which is, staying awake until 3 o'clock a.m. to study is a very common student experience.
Oh, definitely.
But it is also a biological disaster.
It really is.
When we look at the physical reality of what Alex is doing, we see a person fighting against their own body.
Because human beings are simply not designed to process really complex academic information in the middle of the night.
Right. The body is sending constant signals asking for sleep. The brain just wants to shut down and rest.
But Alex forces it to stay awake. He forces his eyes to keep looking at his textbooks.
And the transcript describes the physical toll this takes on him the following morning.
He is completely exhausted.
When you are exhausted, your energy reserves are totally empty. You have nothing left.
And in this deeply tired state, Alex has to go to a 2-hour history lecture.
A lecture is a large university class where a professor stands at the front of the room and talks continuously.
And 2 hours is a very long time to sit still and simply listen.
Even when you have slept perfectly.
It's exactly. Sitting through a 2-hour lecture with Professor Sterling after sleeping for maybe 3 or 4 hours, that sounds like a form of torture.
It does. And this is where his friend Mia uses that highly descriptive word we mentioned.
The zombie.
She says he looked like a zombie sitting in the front row.
Calling him a zombie is such a vivid cultural metaphor. In English, when we use the word zombie to describe a person in normal life, we are painting a very specific picture.
Right. We do not mean they are a literal dead monster from a horror movie.
No. We mean they are physically awake, their eyes are open, but mentally they're completely checked out.
They are moving very slowly. They are not reacting normally to the world around them.
Mia sees Alex sitting in the front row, staring blankly at the professor. He is totally unable to engage with the material.
And that leads directly to the secret code handwriting we talked about in the beginning.
The squiggles.
The transcript reveals that Alex genuinely tried to be a good student during that long lecture.
He held his pen. He tried to write down the historical facts that Professor Sterling was talking about.
But because he was in that zombie-like state, his motor skills were failing.
His motor skills, meaning his ability to actually control his hands.
Yes. His brain was simply too exhausted to send the correct signals to his finger.
And the result is a whole page of notes that he cannot even read.
The core irony of this situation is profound.
An irony is a situation where the result of an action is the exact opposite of the goal you intended.
Right. Alex stayed up until 3:00 a.m. because he wanted to learn.
He wanted to absorb information from his books.
But that specific choice completely ruined his ability to learn the next morning in class.
He essentially sabotaged his own education.
He went to a 2-hour class and received 0 educational value from it.
He will never get those 2 hours back. And worse, he has no notes to study from later because he can't read them.
It is a terrible cycle.
To understand just how desperate Alex feels in this moment, the hosts of Minds in Motion, Mark and Clara, point out his survival strategy.
This is a great detail. Alex tells Mia that he was drinking his coffee incredibly slowly during the lecture.
He did this specifically to, quote, make the caffeine last.
Caffeine is the stimulant in coffee. It is the chemical that provides temporary energy.
Think about the psychology of taking a really slow sip of coffee.
He is holding that cup of coffee as if it is a magic potion keeping him alive.
It is a pure survival mechanism.
If he drinks the coffee quickly, the temporary energy will disappear.
And he will fall asleep. It's right there in the front row of the lecture hall.
By taking tiny sips, he is trying to trick his body into staying awake just a little bit longer.
This small detail tells us everything we need to know about Alex's current state.
He is not thriving in his academic environment.
No, he is not in control of his learning at all. He is entirely in survival mode.
He is just reacting to his environment with quiet panic.
He has no plan for the day. His only plan is hoping his cup of coffee will prevent him from collapsing on the floor.
This reactive panic state is the direct opposite of how a successful student operates.
And we see that successful operation very clearly when the transcript introduces Mia.
The podcast hosts describe Mia as a pro student.
In English, using the word pro, which is short for professional to describe a student, means something very specific.
It means she treats her university education with the same seriousness, organization, and discipline as a high-level career.
She is not just casually going to classes, she is managing her academic life with extreme skill.
The conversation between Alex and Mia actually takes place in a cafe after their morning classes are over.
Alex asks Mia why she was not in the 11 a.m. session of a particular class they share.
And Mia's response reveals her entire philosophy on time management.
Mia explains that she deliberately chose to take the 9:00 a.m. session of that class instead.
On the surface, choosing to wake up earlier might seem like a much harder path.
Many students prefer to sleep late and take classes in the afternoon.
But Mia has a very specific strategy, which Clara highlights in the source text.
Mia prefers to get her mandatory classes finished as early in the morning as possible.
The logic is simple, but very powerful. By finishing her classes early, she leaves the entire rest of the day completely open.
It's flexible time for her own independent work. She is actively controlling her schedule.
She is front-loading the required activities.
Front-loading means putting all the hard work at the very beginning. She knows that sitting in a class drains your mental energy.
By getting it out of the way immediately, she creates a massive, unbroken block of time for herself.
This is the stark contrast between the two friends.
Mia planned her schedule months in advance to protect her free time.
She went to bed at a reasonable hour. She woke up, attended her 9:00 a.m. class, and is now sitting calmly in the cafe.
Alex, on the other hand, is suffering the consequences of a terrible decision he made at midnight the night before.
He is dragging himself through the day, barely surviving.
One student is managing the university experience. The other student is being crushed by it.
But managing the experience requires more than just waking up early.
It does. It requires making highly intentional choices about physical locations.
The transcript shifts into a really fascinating discussion about where learning actually happens.
We can look at this as the design of an environment for deep focus.
Because after the cafe, Mia does not go back to her apartment.
No, she goes directly to the university library. And remember, it is a Tuesday morning.
Alex is very surprised by this.
He views going to the library early in the week as something only overly stressed students do.
But the podcast hosts dive deeply into why the library is an absolute necessity for someone like Mia.
Clara, the host in the source material, shares her own perspective on this.
She explicitly states that studying at home is a fundamentally flawed strategy. It just does not work well.
She lists 3 specific items found in a home that destroy a student's ability to focus.
The television, the refrigerator, and the bed.
These are very ordinary household items. We all have them.
And we all rely on them for comfort and survival.
But in the context of academic focus, they are powerful enemies.
Why are they enemies? Because they represent the path of least resistance.
When you sit down to read a dense academic text or write a complex essay, your brain is doing heavy lifting.
It is burning calories. It is difficult, uncomfortable work.
And the human brain naturally seeks to avoid discomfort.
If you try to do this difficult work in your bedroom, your bed is a constant physical temptation.
It just sits there offering immediate comfort.
The television offers bright, passive entertainment that requires zero mental effort.
And the refrigerator offers the perfect excuse to stand up and stop working. You just tell yourself you are hungry.
The environment you are in dictates the choices you have available.
If you are sitting on your sofa with your textbook and the TV remote is right next to you, you have to actively use your willpower.
You have to ignore the remote every single minute.
Constantly fighting that temptation drains the exact mental energy you should be using to study.
You spend more time forcing yourself not to watch TV than you do actually reading your book.
Mia understands this limitation of human willpower perfectly.
That is exactly why she removes the temptations completely by going to the library.
But Mia does not just walk into the library and sit at the first available chair.
No, the transcript is very precise about her movements. She goes down into the basement of the library.
She finds a quiet corner.
And, crucially, she finds a spot away from any windows.
This highly specific location is the physical architecture required for what Clara refers to as deep work.
Deep work is a concept that describes a state of intense, distraction-free concentration.
It is the ability to focus without any interruption on a cognitively demanding task, a hard mental task.
The choice to avoid windows is brilliant.
Windows are naturally distracting.
If you sit by a window, your eyes will inevitably track the movement outside.
You will watch a bird fly by.
You will notice the weather changing.
You will watch other students walking past.
And suddenly you are daydreaming instead of reading.
By choosing a corner in the basement with no windows, Mia is voluntarily putting herself inside a visual box.
She is eliminating every single alternative option.
There is no TV, no bed, no food, and no view of the outside world.
The only thing left to look at is the work in front of her.
It might sound isolating or even slightly miserable to lock yourself in a windowless basement corner.
But the result is extreme efficiency.
By removing the visual noise, her brain does not have to fight the temptation to look away.
However, the transcript also introduces a fascinating counterpoint to this isolation.
Yes, at the end of their conversation, Mia actually invites Alex to join her at the library the following morning.
But she does not invite him to the basement corner.
She says, "We can find a big table."
This seems like a contradiction at first.
If the secret to deep work is absolute isolation in a corner, why is she suggesting they sit together at a large, visible table?
Mia explains her reasoning. She tells Alex that it is much easier to stay focused and work hard when you are not alone.
This taps directly into the atmosphere of the library that Clara discussed earlier in the source.
The library is filled with other people who are also engaged in silent, focused work.
This phenomenon relies on social proximity and silent accountability.
When you sit at a large table in a university library, you are surrounded by peers who are reading, typing, and concentrating.
There is an unspoken social pressure to conform to the behavior of the room.
If you pull out your phone to play a video game, while the person sitting directly across from you is intensely reading a textbook.
You feel socially uncomfortable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You feel a sense of accountability to the shared purpose of the space.
It is very similar to the psychology of going to a fitness gym.
You could technically do push-ups and sit-ups in your living room.
But it is very hard to find the motivation to do that.
When you go to a gym, everyone around you is sweating and working hard.
The physical environment and the people in it force you to elevate your own effort.
Mia is offering this environment to Alex.
She knows he is struggling. She knows he is acting like a zombie.
By inviting him to the big table, she is trying to expose him to the positive, focused energy of the library.
She's hoping that the environment will help repair the damage he is doing to his own study habits.
We see that the physical environment is half the battle.
The other half is what the student actually does once they are sitting in that environment.
The transcript moves into a detailed look at the academic tasks Mia is performing.
Mark and Clara focus on a very common phrase used in the English language, particularly in universities and professional settings.
The phrase is, do some research.
To a learner of English, the word research might just sound like another word for reading.
But the source text makes a clear distinction here.
Reading is generally a passive activity.
You open a book, you start at page 1, and you let the author tell you a story or explain a concept. You just absorb the words.
Doing research is entirely different. It is highly active.
When you do research, you are entering the library or the internet with a specific mission.
You are looking for targeted information.
You are opening academic journals.
Journals are essentially specialized magazines written by scientists and professors.
And you are hunting for specific facts, data, and evidence to support an idea.
Mark uses a wonderful analogy in the transcript to explain this.
An analogy is a comparison between two different things to highlight a similarity.
He compares a student doing research to a detective for books.
Think about how a police detective operates at a crime scene.
The detective does not just walk into the room and look around passively.
No, the detective is hunting for very specific clues.
They are looking for a fingerprint on a glass,
A footprint near the door.
a missing document.
They collect these isolated clues and bring them together to solve a complex mystery.
A university student is doing the exact same thing, but their crime scene is the library.
The mystery they are trying to solve is the question their professor has given them.
They must hunt through hundreds of pages of text to find one specific quote or one specific piece of data that proves their point.
They are gathering clues to build a solid case.
Mia's specific case is outlined clearly in the text.
She tells Alex that she is working on a psychology essay.
Psychology is the scientific study of the human mind and human behavior.
The requirements for her essay are significant. She notes that she must write about 2,000 words.
Writing 2,000 words on a complex scientific topic is a heavy burden.
It requires a logical structure, a clear argument, and extensive evidence.
Furthermore, she has a strict deadline. The essay must be finished by Friday afternoon.
Let us look at how Mia manages this pressure during her time in the basement.
She tells Alex she spent 3 hours in her quiet corner.
During those 3 hours, she found 3 excellent books on her topic.
Finding the books is the first step of the detective work.
But notice what she does next. She does not immediately start writing the 2,000 words.
Instead, she spends the rest of her 3 hours simply reading those 3 books.
Taking careful notes and organizing her ideas.
She is building the foundation of her argument.
She is laying out all her clues on the table so she can see how they fit together.
This deliberate, step-by-step process is the ultimate defense against academic panic.
By breaking this massive project down into smaller, manageable phases, Mia maintains total control of her anxiety.
She has a huge task due on Friday, but on Tuesday, her only goal was to find books and take notes.
She achieved that goal, so she feels successful and calm.
Contrast this careful organization with Alex's reaction.
When he hears about her progress, he admits that he still needs to find his books.
He has not even started his research yet.
He has the exact same deadline as Mia, but he has not taken the first step.
You can hear the panic starting to build in his words in the transcript.
The mountain of work looks impossible to climb because he hasn't even put his boots on yet.
But as Clara points out in the source text, even the best preparation, like Mia's, cannot entirely protect a student from the most difficult phase of the project.
Mia has her books, she has her notes, her clues are organized.
The next step is to actually write the essay.
And this introduces a psychological barrier that every single student and professional must face.
Before we discuss that barrier, we must clearly define what an essay is in this context.
Clara provides a straightforward definition.
An essay is a formal, structured piece of writing.
So if you are spelling it, it is E-S-S-A-Y.
It is not an opinion piece or a casual journal entry. It begins with a prompt or a question provided by a professor.
Clara gives a fascinating example of an essay prompt from her own experience. The question is, why do people dream?
This is an incredibly broad, complex question.
The student's job is not to guess the answer.
The student must use their detective work, their research, to write several pages arguing a specific answer to that question.
And it must be supported entirely by academic evidence. You have to prove your answer using the facts you found in the library.
That is the essence of an essay.
But knowing the definition of an essay does not make it easy to start writing one.
This is where Mark and Clara shift their conversation to a universal feeling of dread.
They discuss a phenomenon called writer's block.
The phrase writer's block describes a state where a person's ability to produce text completely stops.
The brain is blocked. You know what you want to say, but you cannot form the words to start saying it.
The imagery Mark uses to describe writer's block is very powerful and highly relatable.
He describes the experience of sitting at a desk, staring at a blank computer screen for an hour.
A blank screen is a completely empty white space on the monitor.
Usually there is a small black line, a cursor, blinking on the left side.
It blinks continuously, waiting for you to press a key on the keyboard.
But your fingers remain entirely still. You stare at the empty space and you feel paralyzed.
Have you ever experienced that paralysis?
Think about it. Have you ever had to write an important email in English, or perhaps a difficult report for your job?
And you just stare at the empty white box on your screen.
Your mind might be full of ideas, but the thought of writing the very first sentence feels impossible.
Clara emphatically states in the transcript that writer's block is the worst.
It is a uniquely terrible feeling because it makes you feel suddenly incompetent.
You have done the research, you understand the topic, but the mechanism of translating thought into written language seems broken.
The paralysis often comes from the fear of making a mistake.
A blank screen represents infinite possibilities. It is perfect because nothing is written on it yet.
The moment you type the first sentence, you have committed to a direction.
If you are anxious about your English or anxious about your grade, the pressure to make that first sentence perfect can completely freeze your brain.
However, students like Mia eventually overcome this block.
They force themselves to type the first flawed sentence because they are being chased by something much scarier than a blank screen.
They're being chased by time.
Time is always running out.
And that brings us to the climax of the student experience.
All the quiet research in the basement, all the panic of writer's block.
It all builds up to a singular moment of intense pressure.
We are talking about deadlines and the physical act of handing the work in.
The source text introduces a very important phrasal verb here: hand it in.
This is a phrase you will encounter constantly in academic and professional environments across the English-speaking world.
The phrase hand in means to submit your completed work to an authority figure.
You hand in an essay to a professor.
You hand in a report to a manager.
It signals that the work is finished and ready for evaluation.
Mark provides an interesting piece of historical context regarding this phrase in the text.
He explains that before the era of personal computers and the internet, the phrase was entirely literal.
A student would write an essay on physical pieces of paper.
They would walk into the classroom, walk up to the teacher's desk, and physically place the paper into the teacher's hand.
That physical movement is the origin of the phrase. You are putting the work into their hands.
Today, of course, the process has evolved entirely.
The vast majority of university students never touch a physical piece of paper when submitting an essay.
The process is completely digital.
Students hand in their work by logging into a university portal and uploading a digital document.
They just click a button on a screen.
But despite this massive technological shift, the language remains exactly the same.
We still say we are handing in the assignment.
The technology has changed, but the emotional weight of the action has not changed at all.
The stress associated with handing in an assignment is tied directly to the concept of a deadline.
A deadline is the absolute final date and time by which a task must be completed and submitted.
The word itself is stark and unforgiving. Deadline.
If your psychology essay is due on Friday at 5:00 p.m., submitting it at 5:01 p.m. means you have crossed the line.
There are often severe penalties for missing a deadline.
This rigid time limit creates a very specific type of psychological pressure that Clara calls deadline stress.
To illustrate just how intense this stress can be, Clara shares a dramatic memory from her own time as a university student.
She recalls a moment where she was literally running across the grass of the university campus.
She was sprinting toward the history department building,
clutching her finished paper in her hand.
She was desperately trying to hand in her essay just 30 seconds before the deadline struck.
Picture the sheer physical exertion of that moment.
She is sprinting across the campus. She is constantly checking her watch.
The seconds are ticking down. Her heart is racing.
The text explicitly mentions the release of adrenaline.
Adrenaline is a hormone produced by the body in high-stress, high-stakes situations.
It triggers a fight-or-flight response, providing a sudden burst of energy and heightened awareness.
Clara was experiencing the pure, raw adrenaline of trying to outrun a clock.
Mark accurately describes this frantic sprint as a core part of the true student experience.
It creates a fascinating cycle. Think about the massive contrast in physical energy we have discussed today.
The process begins in absolute stillness.
A student sits motionless in a silent, windowless basement for hours, doing deep work.
Then they sit frozen in front of a blank screen, battling writer's block.
But the process ends with a panicked, adrenaline-fueled sprint across a physical campus.
The absolute quiet of the library and the absolute panic of the deadline are deeply connected.
You cannot have one without the other.
This cycle is the reality of academic life.
To navigate this cycle successfully, you need the right tools.
And for an English learner, the most important tools are linguistic.
The transcript concludes with a focus on the essential language required to discuss these experiences.
The hosts pull out 4 fundamental sentences.
These are not just random vocabulary words. They are structural pillars.
If you understand how these 4 sentences are built, you can communicate your own academic or professional plans with complete clarity.
These phrases dictate the rhythm of a student's day. As we explore them, notice how the hosts, Mark and Clara, use small grammatical choices to convey big meanings.
Let's start with the first essential phrase from the text. I'm going to the library to study.
I'm going to the library to study. This is a beautifully efficient sentence.
It establishes both a physical destination and a clear intention.
The speaker is moving to a specific location, the library.
For a specific purpose to study.
The efficiency lies in the dual use of the preposition to.
Going to the library indicates the direction of travel.
To study is the infinitive form of the verb, indicating the reason for the travel.
It leaves no room for confusion. It is the language of a student who has a plan, much like Mia.
The second phrase builds on this intentionality.
I need to do some research for my project.
I need to do some research for my project. This sentence moves from location to action.
We discussed earlier how research is an active hunt for clues.
The phrasing here is crucial. We say, do some research.
Research, in this context, is an uncountable noun.
We do not say I need to do a research or I am doing many researches.
We use the word some to indicate an unspecified amount of this continuous activity.
And the purpose of the activity is attached at the end, for my project.
The structure clearly links the hard work to the final goal.
The third phrase introduces the critical moment of submission we just analyzed.
I have to hand in my essay on Friday.
I have to hand in my essay on Friday. This sentence is heavy with obligation.
The words have to indicate that this is not a choice. It is a strict requirement.
The action is the phrasal verb hand in, which we know means to submit for grading.
And finally, the timeline is established on Friday.
Notice the use of the preposition on for a specific day of the week.
The urgency is built right into the grammar.
Which leads us perfectly to the final and most stressful of the 4 phrases.
The deadline for the homework is tomorrow.
The deadline for the homework is tomorrow.
This sentence places the most important, terrifying word right at the very beginning, the deadline.
It demands immediate attention.
It then specifies what the deadline is for the homework.
And it ends with the immediate time frame, is tomorrow.
It is a simple statement of fact, but it carries immense weight.
These 4 sentences, going to the library, doing some research, handing in the essay, and facing the deadline, map out the entire life cycle of a university assignment.
While they are framed around student life, the architecture of these sentences is highly adaptable.
A professional in an office uses the exact same structures.
You might say, I am going to the conference room to plan.
Or, I need to do some research for the client.
Or, the deadline for the quarterly report is tomorrow.
The vocabulary scales perfectly from the university library to the corporate boardroom.
It is the language of focused, deadline-driven work.
As we wrap up our analysis of the Minds in Motion transcript, let's look at the broad view of what we have uncovered.
We have seen that surviving a heavy academic workload is a delicate balancing act.
We saw the dark side of this balance with Alex, who exhausted himself with late-night studying.
Turning into a zombie who could not even read his own secret code handwriting during a lecture.
And we saw the successful side of the balance with Mia. We analyzed her proactive choices.
She took early classes to clear her schedule.
She sought out the windowless basement of the library to eliminate the temptations of the TV and the bed.
She acted as a detective for books, carefully organizing her clues before facing the agonizing blank screen of writer's block.
She managed her time to avoid the pure adrenaline panic of a last-minute sprint across campus to beat a deadline.
The transcript shows us that the academic experience is intense.
But Mark and Clara also drop a hint at the end of their conversation about the other side of university life.
They mention the student lounge, a space dedicated entirely to socializing and relaxing.
They suggest that a true pro student makes a timetable not just for studying, but for fun and connection.
The deep work in the basement is only sustainable if it is balanced with human interaction.
That balance is essential. But the intense focus required for the work itself leaves us with a lingering philosophical question.
We analyzed Mia's strategy of finding a windowless corner to achieve deep work.
She's a highly organized professional student, yet she still feels the need to hide from the world to get her work done.
This raises a provocative thought regarding human willpower.
Are any of us truly capable of ignoring distractions purely through the strength of our own minds?
Think about that. If the smartest, most organized student needs a blank wall to focus, perhaps our struggles with distraction have nothing to do with weakness.
Perhaps our ability to succeed or fail is almost entirely dictated by the physical room we choose to sit in.
If you are struggling to focus on your English studies, maybe the problem isn't your brain.
Maybe the problem is your environment.
It suggests that manipulating our environment is the most powerful tool we have for success.
It changes how you look at the space around you entirely. We want to thank you for joining us on this deep dive today.
You navigated some very complex cultural concepts and psychological ideas in a second language.
And that takes exactly the kind of deep work we have been talking about.
Keep examining your environment, keep practicing your English, and keep hunting for knowledge.
We will be here next time to explore another fascinating topic with you.